excommunicated Robert Rozier on live TV. With the symbolic stroke of a marker, Mitchell had separated himself from Rozier permanently. Rozier had no one left to protect but himself. He decided to begin working with the FBI. It was the break agents were hoping for. Just after his transfer to federal prison, Rozier told investigators that he knew of at least 20 murders across the country that had been ordered by the Yahweh leader, Huron Mitchell. To agents, it was clear that Mitchell hid behind organized religion as a front for organized crime. Rozier also explained why he and another man killed Anthony Brown at the Rue Broussard at the apartments in Opa-locka. Special Agent Herbert Cummings confirmed what he already suspected.
Brown and Broussard were executed. That's pretty much what happened. They resisted being evicted from their homes, and they spoke out on TV against the Yahwehs. And we were told that was the reason why they were murdered.
Rozier also confessed to the murder of Raymond Kelly and another man whose ears had been cut off. Rozier told agents that the Yahweh leader directed him to kill as many white devils as possible and to return with an ear as proof. With Rozier, the FBI had a witness who could connect Huron Mitchell with deadly violence. But because he was a killer himself, Rozier wasn't an ideal prosecution witness. U.S. Attorney Richard Scruggs needed to find others willing to corroborate Rozier's stories.
We just started traveling all over the country, tracking down these individuals, trying to convince them to testify and to cooperate. And one of the questions that we would get early on from the witnesses, or from the prospective witnesses, was, well, I take risks. If I testify, well, something happens to me, am I likely to get killed? It's the only time in my 22 years of experience that I have told people, because I felt like I had to tell them, is that yes, there is a chance that you will suffer retribution.
Huron Mitchell fought the investigation by continuing to polish his public image.
Everybody, good night, warm welcome.
He continued to turn distressed buildings into gleaming properties. As Yahweh Ben Yahweh, he toned down his anti-white message and made large contributions to popular causes.
Watching Yahweh become stronger and stronger, and watching him become more and more accepted by the community, I, as well as all of the investigators, felt he had to be stopped.
Huron Mitchell became a bigger-than-life public figure, enjoying all the legitimacy money could buy. He seemed unstoppable. After almost a decade of investigation, the FBI still lacked enough evidence to arrest self-proclaimed Messiah, Huron Mitchell. Intimidation and murder had silenced most who dared to speak out against him. Assistant U.S. Attorney Richard Scruggs had a difficult time persuading members to overcome their fear.
I prayed with people, I begged people, I cajoled people, I urged them to do the moral thing, I urged them to do the ethical thing, I urged them to fight a false religion, and basically use every means I had available to me to convince people to cooperate.
Those bold enough to stand up against Huron Mitchell, and call himself the Son of God, were placed under witness protection.
Do hereby proclaim Sunday, October 2nd, 1909, this Yahweh Ben Yahweh Day.
As Mitchell continued to thwart the investigation privately, publicly, his legitimacy grew as Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
He's having photo op sessions with the mayor. The mayor from been Yahweh Day, and their banners on the streets saying, proclaiming Yahweh been Yahweh Day.
In October 1990, despite his public successes, the FBI filed sealed arrest warrants for him and a dozen of his followers. They were kept secret to allow the FBI a month to plan the arrest. Agents left a plan Operation Jericho. Special Agent Eric Cousins knew it would be dangerous to take Yahweh Ben Yahweh in Miami, since he was at the height of his popularity there.
The main issue for law enforcement was safety. The safety of the individuals, the law enforcement members involved in the arrest, and also the safety of innocent individuals and the safety of Yahweh members, including Yahweh members.
Fortunately, Mitchell and others named in the indictment were scheduled to embark on a multi-city tour. Yahweh Ben Yahweh's first stop would be in New Orleans. The main arrest team would seize him at his hotel. Once he was in custody, teams in 6 other cities would capture his henchmen across the South.
There were a number of arrest teams in different cities, several cities: Atlanta, North Carolina, New Orleans, Miami. I was sent to New Orleans to assist the New Orleans division with the arrest of Yahweh Yahweh.
On November 6, 1990, Hulan Mitchell arrived at the Monteleone Hotel in New Orleans. The FBI was already there. To track Mitchell's movements, undercover agents were posted on every floor. Throughout the South, teams took their positions outside Yahweh Townhouse and waited for orders from Miami. Success depended on an unbroken flow of communication. The agents in Miami coordinated the entire operation. At 3 a.m., everyone was set by heel. The game of Orleans was over. Agents in the hotel called Mitchell's room.
The first instructions was that the instruction by so into the school waiting down the hall. The second instruction was that he come out with his hands up and that he walk slowly down the hall.
Agents didn't know if Mitchell or his bodyguards were carrying weapons. Finally, their main suspect emerged. Sent word to Miami. Mitchell was captured. The other team was swarmed in, arresting the criminal members of Mitchell's town. In a matter of minutes, scores of agents mobilized to capture a dozen suspects across hundreds of miles.
No one was hurt. We accomplished our goal. We arrested as many individuals as we could identify during the operation. And that's why we were very successful.
Hulan Mitchell was charged with extortion, conspiracy, and murder in aid of racketeering. Prosecutor Scruggs believed he was still dangerous.
We found out that there was actually a hit team of 5 individuals that was stalking us, trying to find out where we were so that they could kill us by the orders of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. actually got dismissed prior to deliberations because they were scared to go back and deliberate.
Perhaps this fear caused what prosecutors considered only a partial victory. In May 1992, Yulon Mitchell and 6 of his more violent followers were found guilty of conspiracy. But Mitchell himself received only 18 years in a maximum security federal prison. It had been a difficult case for investigators.
He found a successful philosophy that people would flock to and actually start joining and pledge their allegiance to him. And I think the more power he obtained, the more influence he obtained over his followers, and he ultimately lost control of himself. And he believed in his own mind he could do anything, even order by them.
Yulon Mitchell is locked away, his murderous actions halted by those who saw through his false gospel. In Los Angeles, a band of gunmen invaded an armored car company. They grabbed militants and then vanished. When the FBI does find suspects, insufficient evidence prevents their arrest. Agents and detectives try to penetrate the gunmen's secret world to bring them to justice.
An armed robbery is a terrifying ordeal. When a gang descended on a Los Angeles cash vault, they threatened to kill anyone who resisted. The violent assault was the largest heist in U.S. history. And a piece of plastic was the only evidence. I'm Jim Kaufman, former head of the FBI's New York office. The FBI, LAPD, and the IRS joined forces to unravel a complex network of money laundering, fraud, and a tight code of silence.
The Los Angeles warehouse district is a tough, big part of town. Street gang, violence, and common. The area's businesses are housed in nondescript buildings and surrounded by barbed wire fences. One secure block was occupied by a leading armored car company. Friday night, September 13th, 1997. Employees of the armored car company were going about their routine, counting and sorting over $20 million. The money would be dispersed to automated teller machines across Los Angeles to meet the weekend demand for cash. There were 5 employees, including 2 security guards, working the graveyard shift. At 12:30 a.m., one guard took his break from the lunchroom as he did every night. But he wasn't alone.
Get it right.
5 armed men saluted the guard in seconds. They dragged their hostage into an office where security monitors were kept. Then a second security guard preparing to go home for the night. Unarmed and out of uniform, he offered no resistance. Four of the assailants headed for the cash vault. The fifth held the guard at gunpoint and monitored the security cameras. The employees of the Vault Prep area were unaware that the building was under siege. The gunman threatened to shoot if anyone disobeyed orders or made any sudden movement. The thieves now had direct access to the vault and its $20 million. One man appeared to be in charge of barking orders to his accomplices. He also used a concealed radio headset to communicate somewhere outside the vault. When commanding his men, the leader didn't use names, only a number code. The robbers were coldly efficient, wasting no movement. In less than 10 minutes, they raised millions for the local time. In the outer office, the gunman removed the surveillance recorder holding to his desk. Seconds later, the boys heard more destruction in the back office. When the leader and another man returned, the employees no doubt feared to eliminate witnesses. But the assailants only stole the vault manager's pickup truck. Suddenly, it was quiet. Relieving the guards finished freeing themselves. They called 911. LAPD officers were immediately dispatched.
Okay, hold on, wait a minute.
Detective John Licata knew the case was unusual from the beginning.
We have experience on the car robberies where the couriers or the truck are attacked. But this was the first time we've ever had a facility hit.
one employee thought he recognized the voice of one of the gunmen as that of a former armored car driver for the company. He comes to the station in the morning to study a photo lineup of former employees. Detective spoke to the mall manager whose personal pickup truck and keys had been stolen. They wondered why he said were taken and not the other. The manager said he parked in the same spot each night.
Well, the suspect had asked him what the vehicle looked like. That led us to believe that whoever took his keys and had taken his vehicle knew him and his vehicle.
The manager agreed one of the men's voices was familiar,
Yeah.
but he couldn't
Damn.
name the name.
Come on.
He said he would contact him if it came to it.
Damn.
Forensic technicians took impressions of the facility's door locks. Initially, damage found on the doors and locks suggested the thieves used force to gain entry. But later examination by technicians in the police lab proved otherwise.
It would damage the locks and the mechanisms, but not to the degree that it would cause them to malfunction to open.
They believed the gunman had used a key, then faked signs of forced entry. Company officials later estimated the loss at a staggering $18.9 million. The robbers knew what to take and what to leave behind.
All of the high cash bins, those things that contain large amounts of cash were taken. Those that didn't, that contained bands and cash checks were not taken.
This suggested that the assailants knew how the company stored its cash. The robbers also appeared to know where the company had installed its video surveillance recorders, including a backup machine that was hidden inside a locked cabinet in the back office. The employees had heard the assailants destroy the lock before the backup was reopened.
Recording devices were kept in a cabinet. Inaccessible to most employees. We interviewed all facility employees, and 80% of them didn't know about recording devices in the back office.
Investigators processed the loading area for any evidence of shoe prints, tire tracks, or clothing found. They found none. But they did discover what appeared to be a broken tape reflector or lens cover.
People spoke with the maintenance person that had cleaned the facility earlier in the day. He assured me that that lens would have had to have been left there sometime in the evening.
No.
So it was surmised by us that it probably was left by the suspect's vehicle. We didn't have a lot of clues as to what the vehicle would be. Other than that reflector that was recovered, we didn't know if it was a common item taken off the trucks, or vehicles.
Since the money stolen from the facility was federally insured, the FBI joined the investigation. Special Agent John McCarran from the Los Angeles field office studied a crime scene video made by the Los Angeles police that detailed the sequence of the gunman's activities during the robbery. The five masked gunmen had pulled off the largest cash heist in U.S. history. Agent McCarran hoped the public would help find them.
The media was given general descriptions of the individuals that committed the robbery as far as height, weight, the clothing, and the fact that the individuals were all armed, and there was a posting of a reward at the time.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Al Sager hoped the vague description would be enough to produce a lead.
The victims told us that they believed that the robbers were black, and that was based on the skin color that they saw through the eyeballs mask. And they also told us that one of the robbers appeared to be lighter skinned and maybe Hispanic. They were not able to see anybody's face.
But they had heard voices. At LAPD headquarters, one of the armored car company employees was shown a photo lineup. The woman believed she had recognized the voice of one of the robbers. Now she was trying to match his voice to a face. The lineup consisted of pictures of policemen mixed with several
Sasha, stop doing that.
security officers.
Stop it. Hey. Leave my fucking car.
One former driver is a possible match to the voice she heard on the night of the robbery.
Stop.
Police learned that the man had recently left LA for New Orleans.
Somebody stop now until
That's my night, you want. I told him I was the first one.
The FBI's New Orleans field office approached the former armored car driver at his family's home. He said he was unaware that the company had been robbed.
Stop it. Now.
He said that he had left his job on good terms a few weeks before the robbery.
It turned out that he was out of town on vacation during the robbery, and the agents were able to corroborate his statements about being out of town.
On the night of the robbery in Los Angeles, the man was 1,900 miles away in Louisiana.
So he was ruled out as a suspect.
Despite the false lead,
Get away from me now.
the robbery had been an inside job. But whoever the gunmen were, they left little behind. And with $18.9 million remaining,
Sasha!
they couldn't be anywhere. In September 1997, the FBI and the LAPD were unable to identify any of the 6 masked men who had robbed an armored car company of nearly $19 million. They believed at least one was a current or former employee, since the gang entered the building with a key and knew where hidden surveillance equipment was. In his second interview, the vault manager on duty during the heist realized he recognized the voice of the lead gunman.
You fucking.
He believed the man was Alan Pace, a former company employee. He thought Pace was one of the 2 gunmen who stole the key to his pickup truck. Pace was familiar with the truck and had asked to borrow it.
Hey.
FBI Special Agent John McCarran studied Pace's employment history.
Alan Pace was an employee who had worked for the company for approximately a year and a half. He was actually suspended the day prior to the robbery.
28-year-old Alan Pace had no criminal record, but when the company suspended him for disciplinary reasons, he had not turned in his keys. Investigators went to interview Pace at his home in Los Angeles. Pace told them he knew about the robbery through the media, but assured the agents that he had nothing to do with the heist. He said he was at a party with his girlfriend on the night of the crime. He gave them her address and phone number. Investigators needed to verify Pace's alibi. They called in for a background check on the girlfriend. Detective John Licata learned she was a former employee too.
Mr. Pace's girlfriend worked in the facility in the Cache Falls area and specifically had a position that required her to handle
his friends attended an all-night party in Long Beach. G and Pace stayed at the party through the early morning hours of the following day. And there were plenty of witnesses who saw them there. Though suspicious, Pace's alibi was corroborated, and it was enough to block investigators temporarily. They would need a different tack to keep the case moving forward.
Yeah, John,
The only physical evidence was a cracked amber lens found in the crime scene. They believed it came from a diesel truck used as one of the getaway vehicles. They needed to find that truck.
I got the assistance of some of my partners and half a dozen of us for the next 5 evenings between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Went to the location of where the other car facility was and interviewed anyone that frequented the area either on foot or in a vehicle.
A week after the robbery, they patrolled the warehouse district near the scene of the crime. After several nights, they found a homeless man living on the streets of the area. He said that on the night the robbery took place, he saw a mid-sized pickup truck idling near the armored car company. It sounded like diesel. He noticed it that night because usually there was little business or late-night traffic in the area. But he didn't see the driver. He'd never seen the truck there before or since. The description of the diesel rental truck fitted the victim's statements that they heard a diesel truck in the company loading area. Investigators suspected that the amber lens found in the loading area had fallen off that truck. Teams of agents and detectives canvassed facilities in the Los Angeles area that rented diesel trucks. They showed employees a photo of the partial lens found at the crime scene. Several recognized the lens as the type used on the running lights for a certain model of truck. The lenses were a problem because they frequently fell off and needed to be replaced.
Metal truck facilities rented the truck with the lens most likely came off of. We subpoenaed documents from all the rental vehicles that they had rented 2 months prior to the robbery, a period of time 2 months after the robbery.
Investigators spent hours pouring through the rental records. But there were no rentals by Alan Pace or his girlfriend. It looked like another dead end. Sorry, contacted Assistant U.S. Attorney Alpha Segment of the legal advice office.
You'll get a warrant from somebody who comes back to take a visit to a crime. You have to have a conversation with the crime. Now, they could deny it, even claim that it was at a different place. We had an alibi, which witnesses that we spoke to corroborated. At that point in time, all we had was the fact that he was a federal employee, he was fired the day before the robbery, and one of the employees believed that one of the robbers had a voice that was similar to his, and that clearly was not enough evidence.
To find out more, the FBI and LAPD began watching the former armored car company employee. If Pace was involved in a multi-million-dollar robbery, he might show signs of his newfound wealth.
We did do surveillance of Mr. Pace, and he did not appear to be living beyond his means. He did lot of cash at his disposal.
Right, indicated pace of the robbery beyond the circumstantial evidence they already had. As the months passed, there was little movement in the case. The reward for information leading to a conviction now totaled $250,000.
Despite the extensive media publicity this case received and the rewards for any information about the perpetrators of this robbery, there were absolutely no leads, no forensic evidence, no eyewitnesses. The investigation just came to a grinding halt.
Though Pace was still the primary suspect, without more substantial evidence, the FBI was unable to make an arrest. For now, it appears that Alan Pace and 5 accomplices had gotten away with nearly $19 million in cash. By September of 1998, a full year had passed since 6 masked gunmen made off with almost $19 million. The prime suspect was Alan Pace, a former Armored Car Company employee, suspended the day before the crime. Assistant U.S. Attorney Al Casega was frustrated by the lack of evidence against Pace.
It didn't appear that he was out there spending money. It didn't appear that he had the fruits of the crime. So there really wasn't any legal basis to go out and arrest him or even to search his house.
Then, press coverage of the 1-year anniversary of the crime prompted a lead for case agent John McCarran. An informant called the FBI, saying he thought he might know one of the robbers. Investigators went to the informant's home in suburban Los Angeles. The informant explained he'd been an employee of the Armored Car Company a year earlier, around the time of the robbery. Since left to become a real estate agent. He claimed that shortly after the robbery, he was given $100,000 in cash to purchase a home for a man he knew, Eugene Hill. Hill asked that the deed to the home be listed in the name of his girlfriend. At his girlfriend's apartment, Hill stored a trunk filled with smaller boxes. He gave one of the boxes to the informant. It contained cash, still bundled by bank wrappers, totaling $100,000.
The informant, when he received the money, noticed that the $10,000 bundle had these bank straps on it. He kept those bank straps.
They were dated the 2 days prior to the heist.
We were able to later determine that those type of wrappers actually came from some of the money stolen from the Armored Car Company.
The informant said Hill changed his mind and asked for the money back, but in cash exchange, not cash. The informant kept $15,000, and Hill had recently begun threatening him. He hoped the FBI could protect him. Eugene Hill had no criminal record and had never worked for the Armored Car Company. But a background check revealed Hill had a connection with prime suspect Alan Pace. Both had worked for another security agency in Los Angeles. Investigators began surveillance on him. At one point, they followed him to a business named Extreme Entertainment. The company billed itself as an entertainment service that provided everything from children's games to exotic dancers. Business records revealed that Eugene Hill was a partner in the company, along with Alan Pace. Investigators suspected that Extreme Entertainment was likely established to launder money from the robbery.
The Internal Revenue Service was brought on board and supplied with information from records and documents which would assist us in preparing money laundering charges against some of these individuals.
The investigative team learned more about the company. Besides Alan Pace and Eugene Hill, Extreme Entertainment listed two other men as partners, Terry Brown and Fred McCrary. The four had worked together at the same LA security agency before Alan Pace was hired at the Armored Car Company. Extreme Entertainment's accounting books looked suspicious to Los Angeles IRS Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Philip Mullins.
There were 4 suspected robbers involved in Extreme Entertainment. Extreme Entertainment wasn't really generating very much income, but there was a lot of cash going through the business, into the bank accounts, and then a lot of money being paid out in salaries.
Investigators began to dig deeper into the financial backgrounds of the four partners. They subpoenaed bank statements, credit card reports, and tax returns. In the personal bank records of Eugene Hill, they found the suspect had a second source of income.
One of the things that we discovered were deposits of checks from a company called Rainforest. And we never heard of Rainforest. We didn't know what kind of company it was. So we went and looked at the Rainforest bank records. And we found that in addition to writing regular monthly checks to Eugene Hill, Rainforest was also writing checks on a regular basis to somebody named Thomas Johnson.
Like Hill, Thomas Johnson's position at Rainforest was listed as a consultant. It was unclear what type of consultants they were. Rainforest was in business developing new recycling technologies. Johnson and Hill had invested $2 million in the company. The investment in a legitimate company was a classic money laundering scheme.
Take bad money, you invest it in something, you hide it, conceal it, and ultimately end up with something that looks legit.
Investigators felt confident that the 5 men were strong suspects, but so far, no evidence connected them directly to the $18.9 million. LAPD Detective John Laycock and Detective John Wong cross-referenced the suspects' names against truck rental records from the time of the robbery. Detective Wong made an important discovery.
The rental agreement with one of the suspects, Eugene Hill, which he had rented the suspect's vehicle that was used that night, just prior to the robbery, and then returned just after the robbery.
We were able to locate that very truck. It was still in the Los Angeles area. And we got that truck and removed the light assembly and had the FBI random lab compare it to the lamp that was found on the loading dock area.
They needed to know if the amber legs had fallen off that truck. While waiting for the lab results, investigators looked further into suspect Thomas Johnson. Johnson lived in an expensive home in an upscale Las Vegas neighborhood.
The IRS conducted surveillance of his residence during that period of time. His girlfriend at the time was identified.
Agents flagged the girlfriend's name. If Vegas police ran into her, they should call LA. On the night of September 10, 1999, nearly 2 years to the day after the robbery, the team in LA got a call and boarded a helicopter. There had been a domestic disturbance at Thomas Johnson's Las Vegas home. Johnson's girlfriend had called the police. They hoped to use the disturbance call as an opportunity to question the girlfriend. She alleged that Johnson had beaten her. She was more than willing to answer any questions they had about her. She said Johnson was laundering money through the Las Vegas casino. He and a friend would buy thousands of dollars in chips that he would later have her exchange for cash. exchange was always in amounts less than $10,000 to avoid filling out cash forms.
Thomas Johnson appeared to be very fond of gambling and appeared to have a lot of money. And it's a little tricky when you do these types of investigations because you don't know where that money is coming from. If it's perhaps gambling winnings that are being used to conduct more gambling activity or robbery.
The girlfriend told investigators Johnson had mentioned a big job that he'd taken part in back in Los Angeles. She said Johnson had invested in a company with a gambling friend. When investigators showed her a photo of Eugene Hill, she confirmed that he was Johnson's friend. The circumstantial evidence against Thomas Johnson, Alan Pace, and Eugene Hill was building. But it was still not enough to make any arrests. Agents would need to turn the suspects against one another if there was to be any hope of conviction. After 6 masked gunmen robbed an armored car company of $18.9 million, the FBI, IRS, and LAPD had gathered strong circumstantial evidence against 5 suspects, but had nothing that directly tied the men to the crime. The only physical evidence recovered was a cracked amber lens found in the loading area of the armored car company. Investigators believe the lens fell off a truck rented by suspect Eugene Hill the day before the robbery. They sent the broken lens and the other lenses from the truck's running lights to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. Forensic expert Michael Smith compared tool marks from the broken lens to those on the other lenses of the truck.
In this case, the marks look rather like the rings on the tree, and we attempt to see whether those marks line up or not.
Using a high-powered comparison microscope, he made an exact match. The same tool had made all the lenses in the same work session, indicating the broken lens had very likely come from the truck rented by Hill. These forensics results were compelling, but they did not definitively prove that Eugene Hill or the other 4 suspects were with the truck during the robbery. Assistant U.S. Attorney Alka Sager needed stronger evidence before authorizing arrests. She hoped Hill's girlfriend would provide it.
We had identified 2 of his girlfriends who also appeared to be spending not large amounts, but amounts of cash. Approximately 2 years after the robbery, we had gotten to the point where we needed to talk to these women that were in Eugene Hill's life.
Worried that charges might be filed against her, one of Hill's girlfriends wrote, telling investigators what she knew. She told them that after the date of the robbery, Hill suddenly had a lot of cash. She said Hill stored 2 footlockers filled with boxes of the cash in her apartment. She and a friend helped him count and sort thousands. Hill told her that before the new Chris bills were spent, they needed to look warm. So she watched them. Usually, Thomas Johnson took part in the operation. She said they would go to Las Vegas, buy gambling chips with washed bills, and then turn them in for new cash. Her story corroborated the statement previously given by Johnson's girlfriend. In return for her testimony, prosecutors agreed not to file charges. Next, FBI agents and LAPD detectives wanted to talk to Eugene Hill's sister. They had some questions about bank accounts the IRS had uncovered.
We were able to subpoena her records and determine that she had several accounts that she was holding in trust for Eugene Hill. Those records showed that there were a lot of unexplained cash deposits into those records, and it also appeared that checks were being written for motorcycles and vehicles and other consumer goods. So now we had a little bit more indication that Eugene Hill was perhaps spending money that he really couldn't explain receiving.
She agreed to talk to the investigators, but said she first needed to make a phone call. She stepped away and appeared to send a numeric page. Investigators asked her about the account she held for her brother. She was evasive and claimed to be unaware of any of her brother's financial matters. Moments after the phone call, Eugene Hill arrived. When questioned, Hill denied any knowledge of the Armored Car Company robbery. He told investigators that he didn't have time to answer their questions then, but he would meet them the next morning at their office. Loaded with cash, Hill was a significant flight risk.
Oh.
The FBI called Assistant U.S. Attorney Alka Sager for advice.
I was just getting ready for bed. The phone rang at home, and the agent said, this is what Mr. Hill wants to do. Should we let him go? And it was just one of those split-second, decisions that had to be made. And I made the decision that we were not going to let Eugene Hill go. We were going to arrest him that night.
As Hill was heading back to his car, he was placed under arrest. With only circumstantial evidence connecting him to the robbery, it was a risk. The law requires an expeditious trial, and the clock had begun to tick. On September 23rd, 1999, the FBI arrested Eugene Hill, one of 5 men suspected in an armored car company heist. Assistant U.S. Attorney Alka Sager made the decision to arrest him, despite having only circumstantial evidence linking him to the crime.
By letting Hill go, there was a real danger that he would have alerted the others to the investigation. Given the amount of money that was taken in this robbery, it was apparent that these robbers would have the means to do what they wanted to. And I just felt we couldn't take that chance.
The search of Hill's home provided no solid evidence tying him to the robbery. But investigators did discover legends that showed Hill purchased music in other people's names. Prime suspect Alan Pace was also listed on Hill's ledgers as having purchased real estate in others' names. IRS agent Philip Mullins had something on Pace.
This was very significant. It was over $1 million worth of real estate purchased for Alan Pace, that he had no legitimate source of income to purchase that property.
If convicted, Eugene Hill was facing up to 40 years in prison. Hoping for sentencing consideration, he confessed and promised to tell police everything he knew. He said Alan Pace recruited him and 3 others for the robbery.
Alan Pace told him that he had already spoken to Terry Brown and Craig Prairie, and they were ready to do the job. And he wanted Eugene Hill to come on board and maybe bring another person in. So Eugene Hill approached Thomas Johnson, who agreed to participate, and that's where the plan was hatched.
Hill confirmed Pace was the mastermind of the heist and leader of the gang. Hill knew all of the men
robbery on Friday night. There were very few employees working there. He said that he knew who those employees were, that they wouldn't offer any resistance, and that it wouldn't be a problem. They would just tie up the employees, take the money, and they'd be in and out, within half an hour.
Following orders, Hill rented the diesel truck on the day of the robbery and met up with the gang at the party at Long Beach. Shortly before midnight, they left the party, one by one. They drove to the warehouse district, then 5 walked to the armored car complex. During the robbery, one man stayed with the truck, waiting a few blocks away for the call to pull in. When the truck arrived, they loaded it up. Pace knew to take the surveillance off the print. They transferred the money to a storage unit rented by Thomas Johnson, where it remained for 2 years. 4 of them left in the rental truck. Eugene Hill and Alan Pace drove away in the vault manager's pickup, since Pace knew where he parked each night. The 6 men disposed of the guns and VCR, changed their clothes, and returned to the party as if nothing had happened. In the time it took others at the party to drink a couple more beers, the gang had committed the largest armed robbery in U.S. history. Investigators needed to corroborate Eugene Hill's story. FBI Special Agent John McCarran and his team believed Thomas Johnson would be the next one taken.
Agents in our Las Vegas office were conducting surveillance on Thomas Johnson, and we knew his exact location. We followed him from one of the casinos.
Agents tailed Johnson as he visited several casinos. They did not know if the suspect was armed. To execute a safe arrest, agents needed to isolate Johnson outside and away from the casino. They asked the casino security guard to approach him with a ruse. The guard told Johnson his car had been hit, that he needed to go outside to fill out a report. Johnson took the bait. As he checked his car, agents safely took him into custody. Investigators laid out the case against him and the possibility of decades in prison. Like Eugene Hill, Johnson cooperated in the hopes of a lighter sentence. Johnson verified Hill's version of the robbery and confirmed that Alan Pace was the leader. Investigators finally had sufficient evidence. They quickly arrested everyone but the leader.
We knew that Pace was aware of the earlier arrest of the other individuals. There was a warrant for his arrest, and he contacted me here at my office and told me that he wanted to self-surrender.
On February 28, 2000, Pace arrived at the LA Federal Building and accompanied his lawyer. He made no statement and refused to cooperate with investigators. Pace was arrested and held without bail. 4 of the robbers pled guilty to robbery and conspiracy. Eugene Hill was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Thomas Johnson received 10 years. Fred McCrary received 7.5 years. And Terry Brown got 8. The 6th gunman, Eric Boyd, fought the charges against him and was found guilty and sentenced to 17 years. After a 3-week trial, Alan Pace, who had orchestrated the armed robbery, was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Agents seized all of the criminal's assets. They were able to account for about $5 million in stolen money.
So about $14 million remains missing. We don't know where that money is, how it was spent, if it was spent. We just have no idea.
But whenever the felons are finally released, the FBI will be watching. If they make any move to recover hidden money, they'll go straight back to jail. To Miami. Embassies are attacked. Businesses are destroyed. Cuban Americans are gunned down by assassins. Deep within the U.S.-Cuban exile community, a mysterious group emerges to take credit for the violence. A terrorist group known as Omega 7.
In the late 1970s, the FBI had a working knowledge of anti-Castro terrorists operating in the United States. But then a new group appeared, more violent and aggressive than their predecessor. I'm Jim Kellstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. All agents had to go on was a series of chilling phone calls, a mysterious voice, and the threat of more violence. FBI field officers from New York to Miami coordinated their efforts, determined to catch the vicious killers.
New York City, the morning of June 6, 1976, uptown Manhattan. A massive bomb detonates at the Cuban mission to the United Nations. New York police and the FBI rush to investigate the explosion.
I could actually hear the bombs fall from my apartment.
Special Agent Larry Wack lives 3 blocks from the mission. He's on the scene in minutes.
The devastation was unbelievable. My first reaction was, there's no way anybody walked away from this thing. And it turned out nobody got injured or hurt.
Special Agent Wack examines the entrance of the mission. From the blast pattern, it looks like the bomb exploded. Camera mounted overhead.
So the guy walks up and sets it down at the door. Can't be on video.
Agent Wack asks the Cuban diplomat for permission to look at the videotape.
Told us that we couldn't view it right away and that they would take a look at it. Got a call the next day from one of the diplomatic personnel who said that there's nothing on the tape. And I said, oh, okay. This is the game we're going to play.
It appears that the Cuban authorities are keeping the videotape evidence for their own intelligence, even if it cripples an FBI investigation.
It would be nice
copy of the tape and you do what you need to do with it. You know, we're gonna keep the original, but, it doesn't happen.
A news station provides the FBI with a tape-recorded phone call from a man who claims he belongs to an anti-Castro organization that bombed the Cuban mission, Omega 7. The FBI has never heard of Omega 7. For Cubans fleeing Fidel Castro's brutal regime, northern New Jersey has become a safe haven. It is home to nearly 100,000 Cuban immigrants. FBI agents talk with people in the community in an effort to identify members of Omega 7.
Getting information from the Cuban exile community was one of the most difficult things to manifest. Even if they knew who the guys were, to them they're heroes.
For the FBI, it's another dead end. Over the next 8 years, Omega 7 strikes targets in New York City again and again. They bomb the Cuban mission twice. Another bomb detonates at Lincoln Center, where an orchestra from Cuba has been performing. In each instance, a representative of Omega 7 calls local news stations to claim responsibility. The terrorist group is on a rampage, but the FBI has few leads.
We were coming up with no witnesses. We were coming up with pieces of battery and whatever that was.
Investigators' only solid lead is a mysterious voice claiming responsibility for the violence. To FBI Special Agent Tom Menapace, all the tapes sound like the same person.
There were slight variations in tone, but if you listen to them all at the same time, you really picked up kind of a common thread.
The caller would identify himself always as a member of Omega 7. Most people pronounced it Omega. There was a distinct Omega with this guy. It was calm, collected. Here's what we did. Here's why we did it.
FBI agents in New York and Miami have interviewed dozens of suspected anti-Castro terrorists. But none of the agents recognize this particular voice.
The voice was driving us crazy. Nobody's got this voice. We were taking copies of the tapes and playing them with prominent members of the community. And we were basically trying to get a name for that call.
But even those deeply involved in the Cuban community are unable to ID the caller.
If there's not that immediate recognition, then a lot of times you get into an area where people are speculating. It's like, gee, it sounds like so-and-so, and you kind of know right there that, you know, they're stretching. Yeah, thanks very much for your help. Take care.
Investigators also play the voice for informants they know have connections to various anti-Castro organizations. No one has any idea who the voice belongs to. And still, the bombings continue. Northern New Jersey, March 1979. Omega 7 bombs the offices of a Cuban businessman in northern New Jersey. His name is Eulalio Negrin, an activist who helps reunite Cuban refugees with their families in the United States. At the scene, the FBI finds no witnesses and little evidence. Investigators believe the bomb is only a warning.
If they meant to kill Negrin with a bomb, I would think that they would have used a more powerful device and known that he was there, or put it on his car or something like that.
That fall, more than 3 years after the original Omega 7 attack, another bomb explodes at the Cuban mission to the UN. The same mysterious voice calls news stations and takes credit on behalf of Omega 7. Eulalio Negrin and his 12-year-old son leave their home. In New Jersey, two masked men attack a businessman for trying to free political prisoners in Cuba. The victim is Eulalio Negrin, a Cuban-American activist. Paramedics try to save his life, but he's lost a lot of blood. In the end, Negrin pays the ultimate price. Tragically, Negrin's 12-year-old son witnessed his father's horrible killing. FBI Special Agent Tom Menaface must interview the grief-stricken boy.
He was in shock. Basically saw his father get killed. And, that's pretty horrible.
Special Agent Larry Wack is stunned by the brutality of the murder.
There's a lot of unwritten rules out there in the game of cops and rovers and bad guys. Shooting a man in front of his son is not part of the rules. And I found that to be true. Cold and calculating. Began to realize that we were dealing with pretty callous policy.
Union City Police recover empty brass cartridges believed to be from the shooter's weapon. The FBI and police question area residents.
You do a real intense neighborhood investigation, essentially tracing the path in which the car was seen fleeing.
Investigators finally find a witness who can describe the color, make, and model of the gunman's vehicle. At the Newark FBI office, Special Agent Menaface listens to a news tape in which a voice proudly claims credit for Negrin's murder.
The stakes are getting higher. It's going from being, a bomb in a doorway, endangering people to actually taking a life.
A prominent man has been assassinated in front of his own home. But all Agent Menaface has to go on is a vague description of the killer's car.
How many of them are registered in Union City or Hudson County or Elizabeth? Who we registered to? Are any of those registrations people who we have as suspects in the case?
In 1979, there was no computerized record system for vehicles by make and model. Investigators failed to find the killer's car. At the autopsy, a pathologist recovers several bullets from the murdered man's body. The bullets could be crucial evidence, but only if investigators can find the murder weapon. A month later, December 1979, the Cuban mission is bombed again. The Soviet mission is also attacked for providing aid to Cuba. The last seriously injures an NYPD officer. Yet again, the mysterious voice of Omega-7 takes credit for both bombings. Miami, January 1980. The bomb partially destroys a small cigar factory. This is the third bombing in Miami in a year. To the FBI, the pattern is familiar. Special Agent Joe Kaczynski is a bomb tech at the FBI's Miami field office.
There was a tremendous amount of damage done, not just to the building, but to the cigars that were being manufactured there, which are manufactured by hand.
As in, a representative of Omega-7 calls a local news station to take credit for the bombings. FBI Special Agent Tom Walzer believes that terrorists are trying to intimidate the shop owner who advocates better relations with Cuba.
The goal was ultimately to get the attention of the Cuban community, but it was also to send a message to the individuals and businesses that had dialogue with the Castro regime, as well as to send a message to the island of Cuba itself.
In Little Havana, a predominantly Cuban neighborhood in Miami, FBI agents have released
We have good access to Cuban leaders, to individuals in the community, as well as established sources that cooperate with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, because the Miami PD has informants, Metro State has them, FDLE has them, ATF has them.
Despite their wealth of informants, the FBI comes up with nothing solid. Agents compared